First and goal from the 4-yard line. Sid Rarick, the ball carrier. Retires former football player. Congratulations, Mike. State 25. Doug Kachansky to attempt the field goal. Kachansky's kick set. To attempt the extra point. Kachansky's kick.
Season on dogs. I felt like anybody, if they got angry enough, if a dog snapped or if a dog did something wrong, it was okay for them to brutally beat that animal.
Kevin Ryan is an expert on dog behavior.
In the case of the Akita attack, we see something we see in virtually every dog bite situation. The dog was kept on a chain. In a situation where a dog is kept on a chain, the dog becomes very, very aggressive due to the frustrated nature of being at the end of that chain. When the dog finally got free, he goes on a rampage looking for the most helpless creature he can find. In this case, it was a child.
The trial focused on the emotionally charged question: was Alan Roberts justified in brutally killing the dog that viciously attacked his son? After hearing all of the evidence, the jury rendered its verdict.
We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Alan Edward Roberts, not guilty.
Even though Alan Roberts was acquitted and his son Andrew is expected to recover completely, there are no winners in this dramatic case. Just scars that must heal with time.
Well, you know, we have a dead dog, and we have a son who's sustained injuries that are going to affect him for years to come. And there just wasn't anything about it that made me feel good.
We turn now to a different kind of dog and a very different kind of attack. This is a disturbing, chilling, and true story about a trained pit bull used as a murder weapon when it was ordered to savagely attack and kill one of its owners. Cleveland detective Mikey Taliano knew something wasn't right when she entered the home where Angela Kaplan was found dead.
When we arrived at the scene, we observed that there was no blood on the front steps, on the doorway. There was no blood on the side door. And her body was laying on the couch. She was draped in a sheet. When we walked into the bedroom, I was stunned when I saw this because there was blood on the ceiling, on the walls. The bed clothing was soaked with blood. It appeared that someone had bled out in that room. And it was obvious that this was the crime scene and that the body had been moved.
Moments later, police discovered a pit bull named Mac locked in an upstairs closet. The dog belonged to the victim's common-law husband, Jeffrey Mann. The dog was immediately taken into custody, and Mann became the prime suspect.
We went back to the office and interviewed the defendant, and at that time he gave us about 3 or 4 different stories about what had happened. The first one, of course, her going for a walk. Then he said he was sleeping. She came home, playfully jumped in bed, frightened the dog. The dog attacked her, but he had taken some medication, and he fell asleep, and when he woke up, he found her dead. And then he told me that another dog broke in the house and attacked her, not his dog.
An autopsy will reveal that Angela Kaplan bled to death from nearly 300 puncture wounds in an attack that was so vicious, teeth marks could be seen on the bone. Later that night, the vet who had examined Mac called Taliano to tell her the dog didn't seem very aggressive, but suspiciously Mac had been recently washed. Could Mac be a trained attack dog?
When I suspected that the dog was used as a weapon, I knew I had a homicide investigation on my hands. I knew that that's how it would have to be investigated. This was not a dog that went berserk and attacked someone. This was a dog that was told to attack someone, which resulted in the death.
To prove that Mac had been trained by Jeffrey Mann to attack on command, Taliano called in training expert Benjamin McPeak.
I asked the dog warden to take the dog outside so I could test the dog to see what kind of reactions I would get. And the dog was very social. I walked up, I petted it. There was no signs of fear or stress in the dog.
But when McPeak showed Mac one of the sleeves used to train pit bulls to attack, Mac became a different dog.
The minute the dog saw the attack sleeve, he became very aggressive. He came to the end of the chain. He's jumping up, he's barking, he's biting at the sleeve. So there was no doubt in my mind that he had been trained to do attack work because he knew what a sleeve was.
Forensic experts determined that Mac's teeth matched the bite pattern on the victim's bones. The coroner ruled Angela Kaplan's death a homicide, and investigators sought to prove that Jeffrey Mann had used Mac as the murder weapon. After a 3.5-week trial,